The perfect life, or so it seemed. Before we dive in, if you love deep, thrilling, and suspense-filled stories, make sure to subscribe to the page, like this video, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this story alive. My name is Simone, and if you saw me in person, you'd probably think I had the perfect life. I was the kind of woman that turned heads effortlessly. Tall, smooth brown skin, a body that filled out every dress I wore just right. My curves spoke their own language, and my face? Well, I'd been told more times than I could count that I looked like one of those beauty influencers that made men forget their wives. But the truth? My life was far from perfect. I was married to Jason, a hard-working man who spent most of his days riding the back of a garbage truck, picking up other people's trash to keep food on our table. We had been married for over 6 years and had a beautiful 5-year-old daughter, Ava. She was our joy, our light. Jason loved her more than anything, and to be honest, sometimes I thought he loved her more than he ever loved me. Jason was a good man, honest, faithful, and responsible. He never complained about his long hours or the smell of his job, even when people looked at him like he was beneath them. He was a strong black man, built like a football player, with a face that could have been on a billboard. Women noticed him, but Jason? He only had eyes for me. I wish I could say the same. By profession, I was a beautician. My hands were magic with skin, hair, and makeup. Women trusted me with their faces, and I never disappointed. But my real power? It was online. My Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook pages were full of women who came to me for advice, beauty tips, skincare routines, even relationship wisdom. I posted daily quotes about self-love and finding happiness, but deep down, I was still searching for my own. Men followed me too. They filled my inbox with compliments, offers, and not-so-subtle invitations. Damn, girl, if I was your man, you'd never have to work another day in your life. Jason is a lucky dude. You need a man that treats you like the queen you are. I ignored most of them, until I didn't. The stranger from Tennessee. His name was Nathan, a white guy from Tennessee, and Lord, was he fine. He had that rugged, small-town cowboy look, sharp jawline, dark blonde hair, piercing blue eyes. The first time he commented on one of my posts, I thought nothing of it. But then he kept coming back, liking every picture, watching every story. One night, I posted a selfie in a silky robe, just something casual before bed. Nathan: "Damn, Simone, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." I smiled at my phone. I should have ignored it. I should have been asleep next to my husband. But I typed back. Me: "Lowell, you say that to all the girls?" Nathan: "Nope. Just the ones who deserve to hear it." I stared at my screen. There was something different about him. He didn't throw out wild compliments like most men. He studied me, made me feel like he saw beyond the filters and captions. That night, we talked until my phone battery died. There was something about Nathan that pulled me in, but I wasn't ready to admit it yet. So, I did what I always did when I had thoughts I couldn't say out loud. I wrote them in my diary, my secret diary. It was where I documented everything: my wins, my struggles, my private desires. No one knew about it, not even Jason. In its pages, I could be honest. And that night, I wrote, "I talked to a man today. A man who made me feel something I haven't felt in years. I don't know where this is going, but I like the way he makes me smile." I should have stopped there. I should have closed the book and never opened that door. But some doors, once cracked open, never close again. Days turned into weeks, and my conversations with Nathan became part of my routine. Jason didn't notice at first. He was too busy working, too tired when he got home. He trusted me. I told myself it was innocent. It was just flirting. just words. But words can be dangerous. I started to feel distant from Jason. The way he held me at night felt different, like a weight instead of a comfort. I found myself pulling away when he kissed me, my mind drifting to Nathan instead. And then, the first real test came. Nathan, I wish I could see you in person. Just once. Just to talk. I hesitated. Then I typed, me. Maybe someday. I had no idea that someday was coming faster than I thought. One evening, I was in the kitchen cooking while Jason played with Ava in the living room. My phone vibrated. A message from Nathan. Nathan, there's a beauty exhibition happening in Oklahoma next month. I checked. It's for professionals like you. What if you told your husband you were going for work? And we met there? I stared at my screen. My hands were shaking. I should have said no. I should have ended things right then. But instead I whispered, what if? That night I wrote in my diary, I don't know what's happening to me. I love my life. I love my daughter. But Nathan makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. Am I crazy for thinking about this? Am I wrong for wanting more? I didn't have the answers yet. But deep down, I already knew where this was going. And once I took that first step, there would be no turning back. The closer the exhibition date got, the more reckless my thoughts became. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just meeting Nathan, just seeing what it would feel like to be near him, nothing more. But deep down, I knew better. I watched Jason every night as he slept beside me, his breathing slow and steady, his arm draped over my waist. He was a good husband, a hard-working man who never let me or Ava go without. But the truth? I wasn't in love with him. Not anymore. Maybe I never had been. I told myself that wasn't fair to think. Jason had always been there for me, always done his best. But his love was heavy. Routine, predictable, something I could see coming from a mile away. There were no surprises, no excitement, no fire. And then, there was Nathan. Nathan, with his deep, teasing voice. Nathan, with his late-night messages that made my skin burn. Nathan, who made me feel like a woman again, not just a wife, not just a mother, a woman. The day I decided to meet him, I stood in front of my full-length mirror, staring at the reflection of the woman I had become. I was still beautiful, still sexy, but there was something missing in my eyes. Maybe I was about to find it. The hardest part wasn't planning to meet Nathan. It was figuring out how to leave without Jason suspecting anything. So, I gave him the most believable lie. I waited until we were eating dinner, the sound of Ava's cartoons playing softly in the background. Jason was tired, like always, rubbing his sore shoulder as he chewed his food. Baby, I started, using the soft voice that always put him at ease. You know how I've been working hard to grow my business? Jason nodded. Yeah, I know, babe. You're amazing at what you do. I smiled, playing my part perfectly. Well, there's this beauty exhibition in Oklahoma next weekend, a huge one. All the top professionals will be there. It's a big opportunity for me. Jason looked up, frowning slightly. Oklahoma? That's far. I nodded. I know, but it's just for 3 days. I'll be back before you know it. He leaned back in his chair, thinking. You sure it's worth it? I mean, we don't really have the extra money for... I already paid for it, I interrupted quickly, giving him an eager smile. I used the money from my last few clients. It's an investment in my future. In our future. Jason sighed, rubbing the back of his head. I don't like the idea of you going alone. I reached across the table and touched his hand. Baby, I'll be fine. It's just work. It wasn't. And I had never been more aware of that than at that moment. The morning I left, Jason hugged me tight at the front door, his lips pressing against my forehead. Ava clung to my leg, pouting. "Mommy, you gotta come back soon," she mumbled, her tiny fingers gripping me. I knelt and kissed her cheek. "I'll be back before you know it, my love." Lying had never been so easy. Jason packed me into the car, his hands lingering on my waist as he whispered, "Be safe, okay? Call me when you get there." I smiled. "Of course, baby. I love you." And then I left. It was a 4-hour drive, but my heart was pounding the entire time. I checked my phone every few minutes, waiting for Nathan's message. Finally, it came. "Nathan, I'm already at the hotel, room 506. Can't wait to see you, beautiful." A shiver ran down my spine. This was happening. I was about to cross a line I could never step back from, and I didn't care. I pulled up to the hotel, my hands shaking slightly as I checked my reflection in the mirror. My makeup was flawless, my lips glossy, my dress hugging every curve just right. I wanted him to see me and lose his breath. I took the elevator up, each second stretching into eternity. My heart slammed against my ribs when I reached his door. And then it opened. Nathan stood there, leaning against the doorway like he had all the time in the world. He was even more gorgeous in person, tall, broad, with sharp blue eyes that ran down my body like he was already undressing me in his mind. "Damn," he murmured, a slow smirk spreading across his lips. "Pictures don't do you justice, Simone." I swallowed, my body already reacting to the way his voice wrapped around my name. "You're not so bad yourself." He stepped closer, his fingers brushing my arm. A slow, teasing touch. "Come inside," he whispered. I did, and the door clicked shut behind me. The moment the door shut behind me, I knew I wasn't leaving the same woman. Nathan stood there, staring at me with a look that stripped me bare before he ever touched me. His blue eyes burned with hunger, his lips curled into a knowing smirk. He knew exactly why I was there. He knew exactly what I wanted. And Lord help me, I wanted it so bad. I took a shaky breath, pretending I had control, but I didn't. My body was already tingling with anticipation, my heartbeat hammering in my chest. "This feels dangerous," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Nathan chuckled, stepping closer. "That's what makes it exciting, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not when he was right in front of me now, so close I could smell the faint hint of cologne on his skin. Then he touched me. His fingers slid down my arm, tracing the soft fabric of my dress. A simple touch, but it sent a fire racing through my veins. "God, you're even more beautiful in person," he murmured, his voice thick with desire. I shuddered. "You're trouble." Nathan smirked. "And you love trouble, don't you?" Before I could answer, his lips crashed into mine. The second our lips met, I forgot about everything. Jason, Avenue, my marriage. All of it disappeared. Nathan kissed me like a man who had been starving for years, and I was the only thing that could satisfy him. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer as his tongue slipped between my lips, deepening the kiss. I moaned, my body melting into him. His hands roamed lower, gripping my ass through my dress. "I've wanted this for so long," he growled against my lips. "Then take me," I whispered. That was all he needed. Nathan didn't waste time. He scooped me into his arms, carrying me across the room before tossing me onto the bed. I gasped, the thrill shooting straight between my legs. "You don't know how long I've imagined this," he murmured, pulling his shirt over his head. My eyes widened. He was perfect. Chiseled chest, strong arms, smooth skin that I wanted to touch, kiss, taste, but my eyes dropped lower, and my breath caught. His dick was already hard, thick, long, standing proudly between his thighs. I swallowed hard. My husband wasn't small, but this was something else. Nathan must have noticed the way my mouth parted because he chuckled darkly. You can stare all you want, but soon I'm gonna make sure you feel every inch of it. A shiver ran down my spine. Then he climbed on top of me, pinning my wrists to the bed. Open your mouth, he commanded. I obeyed. He slid his thick length between my lips, groaning as I wrapped my tongue around him. He tasted like sin and temptation, and I took him deeper, loving the way he twitched against my tongue. Fuck, he gritted out, gripping my hair. You're so fucking good at this. I moaned, sucking harder, my hands gripping his thighs. He pulled back, teasing me, then pushed deeper, filling my mouth over and over until my eyes watered. This is just the beginning, he promised. I believed him. After what felt like an eternity of pleasure, Nathan pulled me up and led me to the bathroom. The shower was already steaming, the warm mist curling around us as he pressed me against the cool tiles. His lips trailed down my neck, sucking, biting, making me arch into him. I want to ruin you, he whispered against my skin. You already have, I breathed, and then he lifted my leg, sliding deep inside me. I cried out, my nails digging into his back as he filled me, stretched me. Fuck, you're tight, he groaned, moving deeper, harder. I held onto him as the water streamed down our bodies, our moans echoing in the small space. Tell me how good it feels, he demanded, his thrusts getting rougher. So good, I gasped. Better than I ever imagined. His grip tightened. You belong to me now. I didn't argue, because in that moment, I did. Hours later, we collapsed onto the bed, sweaty and tangled together. My body was spent, exhausted from the pleasure he had given me. I reached for my phone, but Nathan snatched it away. Not yet, he said, smirking. I pouted. Jason's probably worried. Nathan leaned down, brushing his lips against mine. Forget about him. Right now you're mine. I sighed, relaxing into him. But when he finally let me check my phone, my stomach dropped. 10 missed calls from Jason. A sick feeling crept into my chest as I read his last message. Jason. Baby, Ava isn't feeling well. She's got a fever. Call me back. Guilt stabbed at me, but when Nathan kissed my shoulder, whispering, Round 2? I didn't hesitate. I put my phone down, and I let him take me all over again. Guilt should have eaten me alive, but it didn't. Instead, as I sat in the back of my Uber, watching the city lights blur past the window, all I could think about was Nathan. The way his hands felt on my skin. The way he stretched me open and made me beg for more. The way he kissed me like he owned me. I pressed my thighs together, already aching for him again. But then my phone vibrated and reality hit me like a slap. Jason. Baby. Where are you? Ava's fever got worse. I had to take her to urgent care. My stomach twisted. I had left my baby sick at home while I was out getting my body wrecked by another man. I quickly typed a response. Me. My phone broke. Just got a replacement. I'm on my way home. A lie. Another one to add to the pile. I exhaled slowly, staring at my reflection in the window. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And the worst part? I didn't want to stop. A mother's guilt. When I finally stepped through the front door, Jason was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up, relief flooding his face. Simone, thank God. Where have you been? I forced a tired sigh, playing the role of the exhausted wife. My phone died and my charger broke. I had to find a store that sold the right one. Jason studied me, eyes full of concern. I was grateful he didn't ask why I smelled like hotel soap. How's Ava? I asked, shifting the conversation. His face softened. She's sleeping now. Her fever finally broke after I got her medicine. Guilt clawed at me. Jason had gone out in the freezing cold to get our daughter medicine, while I had been moaning another man's name in a luxury hotel bed. I swallowed hard. I'll check on her. I walked into Ava's room, my heart tightening as I saw her curled up in bed, her tiny chest rising and falling. I brushed a hand over her forehead, relieved to find it cool now. Then, as if she could sense me, her eyes fluttered open. "Mama?" Her voice was small, weak. Tears burned my eyes. "Yes, baby, I'm here." Ava blinked sleepily, looking at me for a long moment. Then, to my horror, a tear rolled down her cheek. "You were gone," she whispered. My throat tightened. "I'm here now, sweet girl." She sniffled. "I missed you." A knife to the heart. I kissed her forehead, tucking her blanket around her. "Go back to sleep, baby." As she drifted off, I sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her. Was this worth it? The lies? The secrets? But even as I questioned myself, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw Nathan's name. My pulse quickened. And I knew. I wasn't ready to stop. The web of lies grows over the next few weeks. I became an expert at leading a double life. To Jason, I was still the loving wife and mother, the dedicated beautician, the woman who worked hard to inspire others online. But in reality, I was addicted. Nathan had unlocked something inside me that I never knew existed. He gave me passion, excitement, raw pleasure that left me shaking and craving more. We met in different hotels, different cities. I started traveling more, using beauty conventions and workshops as my excuse. Jason never questioned it. He trusted me. That made it so much easier to lie. But I wasn't just lying to Jason anymore. I was lying to myself. Because no matter how much I told myself that this was just sex, that I could control it, I was falling for Nathan. One night, after I came back from another work trip, I found Jason waiting for me in the living room. His arms were crossed, his jaw tight. "Simone, we need to talk." I set my bag down, keeping my expression neutral. "What's wrong?" Jason studied me for a moment, then shook his head. "That's what I want to know. You've changed." I forced a laugh. "Jason, I've just been busy with work." "Bullshit." His sudden anger startled me. Jason never raised his voice. "You barely touch me anymore," he said, his voice tight with hurt. "You're always gone. When you're home, you're distracted." "What's going on, Simone?" I swallowed. This was dangerous territory. I had to be careful. So I softened my expression, walking over to him. I placed a hand on his chest. "Baby, I'm just exhausted. Business is growing and I have to keep up. But I love you. You know that, right?" Jason searched my face, and for a moment I thought he saw right through me. But then he sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "I just miss you, Simone." Guilt twisted in my stomach, but not enough to stop me. Because when my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan later that night, my heart skipped a beat. The diary of secrets. The only place I told the full truth was in my diary. Every night I wrote down everything, the way Nathan's hands felt on my body, the filthy words he whispered in my ear, the way he made me feel things Jason never could. It was my safe space, the only place I could be honest. And I never once thought Jason would find it. As my affair with Nathan deepened, my home life crumbled. Jason became more distant. Ava started looking at me differently, as if she sensed something was wrong. But I was too far gone. One night, after coming back from a weekend with Nathan, I stumbled into the house drunk. I never drank like that, but Nathan had convinced me to let loose, to enjoy myself. Jason was already asleep, or so I thought. Because as I collapsed into bed, my head spinning, I never noticed the way Jason sat up in the dark. And I never saw the way his eyes lingered on the nightstand, where my diary lay open. Jason was never supposed to find it. The diary was my secret, my confessional. Every sinful encounter, every filthy word Nathan whispered to me, every betrayal I committed against the man who loved me, and now, Jason had read it. The confrontation, I woke up groggy, my head still spinning from the wine I had downed the night before. My mouth was dry, my body aching. Then I noticed the silence. Jason wasn't beside me. Something felt wrong. I pushed myself up, blinking away the blur in my vision. My phone was dead. When had it died? I didn't even remember plugging it in last night. I reached for it, but my hand froze midair, because that's when I saw it. My diary, lying open on the nightstand. Pages flipped, exposed. A cold chill ran down my spine. Number no, no, no. I snatched it up, my hands trembling as I flipped through it. Page after page of my darkest confessions stared back at me. The filthy nights in hotel rooms, the steamy shower sex, the way Nathan pinned me down and filled my mouth with his thick, hard. I slammed the diary shut, my heart pounding in my ears. Jason knew. The storm before the storm. I found him in the kitchen, standing at the sink with his back to me. The air was thick, suffocating. Jason. My voice came out hoarse. He didn't turn around, didn't move. I swallowed hard, stepping closer. Baby, what's wrong? He finally spoke, but his voice wasn't loud. It wasn't full of rage. It was quiet, too quiet. When were you going to tell me, Simone? I felt my knees weaken. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Jason turned around, and the look on his face made my stomach drop. He wasn't just angry. He was broken. His eyes were red. His jaw clenched so tightly it looked painful. Was it all a lie? He asked, his voice shaking. Every time you told me you loved me, every time you kissed me, was I just a joke to you? Tears burned my eyes. Jason, Who is it? He interrupted. His voice was suddenly sharp, cold. I hesitated. He already knew the answer. I read everything, Simone. I sucked in a breath. He read everything, my sins, my cravings, my obsession with Nathan's body, how I compared my husband's manhood to another man's. Jason took a step forward. So tell me, was it worth it? My throat closed up. I should have apologized, fallen to my knees and begged for his forgiveness. But the truth was, I didn't regret it, and that terrified me. Jason let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. You know the worst part? His voice cracked. I always had a feeling. I always knew you didn't love me the way I loved you. Tears slipped down my cheeks. That's not true. Then tell me. His eyes locked onto mine. Did you ever love me, Simone? I froze. Lying would only make things worse. So I told the truth. I married you out of pity, I whispered. Jason flinched like I had slapped him. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. You. He shook his head. You married me out of pity? I wiped my tears, but they wouldn't stop falling. Jason, Who is Ava's father? The question sliced through the air like a blade. I gasped, stepping back. What? Who is her father? Jason's voice was shaking with barely contained rage. I felt the blood drain from my face. No, I whispered. Jason, don't. He slammed my diary onto the counter. You wrote it in here. The doubts, the suspicions. You don't even know, do you? My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the chair. Avenue. My daughter. The one innocent thing I had left in my life. Jason let out a hollow laugh. For years, I ignored the little signs. Her lighter skin. The way she doesn't look like me. I told myself I was being paranoid. That my wife would never. His voice broke. But now I know. I covered my face with my hands. Jason, please. Pack your bags. My head snapped up. What? Jason's eyes were dead, lifeless. "You're leaving," he said flatly. "I want a DNA test, and if she's not mine—" He swallowed hard. "I swear on everything, Simone, I will never forgive you." A sob tore through me. I had lost control of everything, and now my secret was out. The next day, Jason barely spoke to me. He called a clinic and scheduled the DNA test. I sat in the car with him and Ava, my heart pounding so hard I thought I would faint. A part of me still hoped that somehow Jason really was Ava's father, that this was all just paranoia. But deep down, I knew the truth. We arrived at the clinic, and the test was done in silence. Jason refused to look at me. As we left, he finally spoke. "You better pray, Simone." And I did. But prayers wouldn't change the truth. I had lost everything. And the worst part? The real father could be any one of three men: Patrick, Byron, or the stripper from my bachelorette party. The moment of truth had arrived. I sat across from Jason in the clinic's waiting room, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. Ava played with her little stuffed bunny, completely unaware that her entire world was about to change. Jason didn't look at me. He hadn't spoken a single word since we arrived. The door to the doctor's office finally opened. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter?" Jason stood first. I followed, my legs shaking. The doctor sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. "We have the results of the paternity test," he said, glancing between us. My fingers dug into my thighs. Jason's jaw tightened. "Just tell me." The doctor let out a slow breath. "Jason, you are not Ava's biological father." The room spun. I heard Jason inhale sharply, but he didn't speak. I turned to him, my vision blurred with tears. "Jason, don't." His voice was barely above a whisper. The doctor cleared his throat. "Would you like to determine the biological father?" Jason shot me a look so cold it felt like ice in my veins. I swallowed hard. I don't know who it is." The doctor nodded. "If you decide to move forward, we can run tests with potential candidates." Jason let out a bitter laugh. "Potential candidates?" He turned to me, his eyes burning with fury. "So how many men did you sleep with behind my back, Simone?" I covered my mouth, sobs racking my body. Jason stood abruptly. "I don't need to hear any more." He turned to the doctor. "She can figure that out on her own." Then he walked out. And just like that, everything fell apart. The fallout. Jason didn't go home that night. He didn't come home the next, or the next. I tried calling, but he wouldn't answer. A week later, I received divorce papers in the mail. No note, no explanation, just the end. I sat on the couch, staring at the papers through tear-filled eyes. Ava played on the floor, her little hands gripping her bunny as she hummed a song to herself. She was so innocent, so unaware that the life she knew was crumbling. I had done this. I had destroyed my family. The unanswered question. But there was still one question left. Who was Ava's father? I thought about Patrick, my best friend with benefits, the one I ran to for comfort before I married Jason. I thought about Byron, my old boss, the one who always had a way of making me feel wanted. And then, I thought about that night, the wild, reckless night at my bachelorette party. The stripper. The way he took me in the back room, his hands gripping my waist, his breath hot against my skin as I squeezed my eyes shut. It couldn't be him. Could it? I would probably never know. And maybe that was my punishment. I had lost the only man who truly loved me. I had betrayed my daughter. And now I would have to live with the weight of my choices forever. That was an intense. Now, let's hear from you. What would you do if you were in Simone's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. See you in the next one.